Hello everyone, this is Dr. Sachinandan Datta, and in this video lecture I'll talk about the different coastal ecosystem. So in my previous video for this ICGDM course, I have talked about the marine ecosystem and the structure of the ocean and the different marine ecosystem. And here I'll talk about the different coastal ecosystem one by one. So this is the part one video. In this video I'll talk about the wetland ecosystem. So that wetland basically is a transitional zone that a truly aquatic habitat and the terrestrial habitat. So wetland, it does mean that where you can find the aquatic as well as the terrestrial. So both. So it's the transitional zone between the true aquatic habitat and the true terrestrial habitat. Okay, and it currently total estimate that 6.4% our land globally is wetland. Okay, and wetland means the word wet, it means it's moisture, means it with water. So land is bringing with water, that is called wetland. Okay, so the primary factor that distinguishes wetland from the other land, so normal land and wetland, how you can distinguish these two land? Okay, so basically the thing is the water bodies. Okay, and is the characteristic vegetations of different aquatic plants and adapted to the unique hydric soil. So hydric, I have told you that wet means it's a little bit moisture or hydric. Okay, so the land, so that in this wetland you can find basically it's an unique hydric soil. Okay, now, why wetland are valuable to the environment? So, what are the importance of wetland in the ecosystem? Okay, so first of all, the main thing is that it is the kidney of the landscape. Okay, kidney of the landscape. What is the function of the kidney in the organism body? It's just purify. It's the purify your blood. Okay, so that the same thing the wetland did, the purify the ecosystem, purify the total environment. Okay, wetland absorb all the bad heavy metal and other nutrient and absorb it, and so it's act as a kidney. And it is also prevent flood. So wetland, it has a huge capability to absorb water. So that's when the huge rainfall and the flood is coming, so it can be absorbed, so it also prevent the flood. It's protect the shoreline. So the coastal wetland basically protect the shoreline. So when the storm surges is coming or the different cyclone or the typhoon is coming, so if there is coastal wetland is protecting the shoreline. Okay, then recreation and tourism, we know that there is a very popular wetland ecosystem, basically a good destination, tourist destination, because there's a lots of migratory birds and lots of life out there. So the people are coming to as their recreation and tourism purposes. And then cultural value, so it is also have a very social, economic and ecological value. And it in support of the social, it also have a huge cultural value. So lots of community are basically wetland, they have a huge importance to the wetland. Next is the, it is also reaches the aquifer. So the surface water or the groundwater reaches, it can help to reaches the aquifer and purify the water, as we already talked about it, that it's act as a kidney. So it's absorb all the bad material from the environment and it's purify the water, and it's also reach our aquifer. Okay, next important thing is that it is also a big or very important for the wildlife habitat. And so lots of the biological diversity you can find in wetland ecosystem, in terms of different types of plant species, different types of animal species, they are inhabitant in this wetland ecosystem. And the major important role, the global important role of the wetland is it's a climate stabilizer, because it absorbs CO2. So it's an sink of the CO2. So it's absorb the CO2. By absorbing the CO2, it's also regulate the global climate. So these are the basically important of the wetland ecosystem. Now we see the types of wetland. So there is a basically different types of wetland. We'll see first one by one. So first is the swamp. Swamp means it's an region. So it's basically nutrient rich groundwater derived from the mineral soil. Okay. So swamp is basically a huge nutrient rich because it mineral soil. So in this region, the water are with the mineral soil. So like a good example of the globally popular swamp is the Florida Everglade. Okay, it's a popular swamp example. Then the marshes are the basically permanently or periodically. It can be permanent or it can be seasonal periodically. Okay, site characterized by the nutrient rich water, that is also. So wetland is also a very nutrient rich water because all the nutrient of this environment itself also taking as a absorber. Okay, and like one example for the marshes is the hurricane marshes in US. And then the bogs are the basically pit accumulated. Okay, so it's made by the peat accumulated and dominated by the moss means the you can find this the moss or algae. Okay, and bog appears where the water at the ground surface basically acidic in nature, and bog generally formed by the rainwater. Okay, so the bog example in British Columbia, that the bronze bog says the popular bogs in the world popular. So these are the three different types of wetland. And another type of the wetland we'll see here, the marine or coastal wetland, that basically near to the coast, the wetland are formed. So that very big example of the world, that you can go any river basin or the estuarine region where the river reaches to ocean. There is basically a formation of the wetland ecosystem, like the globally very popular is the Sundarban wetland. That is also a Ramsar site, and that is a world largest mangrove ecosystem. Like here in Oman, we will find a marine coastal ecosystem. That is also the first wetland ecosystem in Oman. That is the Koram Natural Reserve wetland. Okay, and inland wetland means this is wetland in the land region. Okay, so like the Alan sub wetland in Oman, that is also inland, so surrounding by the land, it is an inland wetland. Like in India we have lots of inland wetland. And Oman, the inland wetlands is the Alan sub wetland. Then man-made wetland. Man-made wetland, that wetland is not created naturally, so it's created by the man or the human. Okay, so that's a big example in Oman. That is the Alan sub wetland. Alan sub wetland basically a treatment plant. Okay, it's created by that particular industry as a treatment plant, and now it's an also the Ramsar site. Okay, so it's a very popular destination for the loads of the migratory birds. Okay, so this is also one classification of the wetland: marine, coastal, inland, and man-made wetland. Now comes to the food web of the wetland ecosystem. So wetland, as we know that the wetland is basically aquatic habitat, and so here basically the main producer of this wetland ecosystem are the phytoplankton and the algae. Okay, different algae. So phytoplankton is eaten by the zooplankton. Okay, and this zooplankton eaten by the small invertebrates. Okay, then after that small invertebrate and zooplankton eaten by the small fish, and small fish eaten by the large fish or the predator birds. Okay, and in the wetland ecosystem you can find the insects, lots of insect. That insect also eaten by the frog. This frog also eaten by the snakes or different organism. And the top predator of the wetland ecosystem basically the heron, water heron or pond heron, or you can find the predator bird like buzzard and eagle, so predator bird. So this is the top predator of the wetland ecosystem. And now few common wetland plants. There is basically wetland means aquatic. So in this wetland, there's a very popular means it's an very rich in aquatic bar aquatic plants. Okay, so flora you can find the water weeds, then the dark weeds, then the water hyacinth, very popular, and it is also very common. And the cattail, so this is long grasses, okay, and the bloodlet oat, then the different algae, then the kunchel, then water lily, then the blue roses. So these are the different wetland plant found in the wetland ecosystem. Now the common wetland animals, you can find the otter, you can find the kingfisher, you can find the frog, snakes, water snake, and the pond heron and the duck. So these are the basically common wetland ecosystem animal found in the wetland ecosystem. Now, a few common animals are the dragonfly, it's very common, and then the beetles, and then the snail, then the water strider, then the tadpole, and the fishing cat. So, this fishing cat is also a top predator in the wetland ecosystem. Now comes when the terms the wetland ecosystem is coming, then the Ramsar site. It's a very world recognized term, that is the Ramsar site. So Ramsar site is the history that in Iran, Ramsar city in 1997 there is a convention that is called a Ramsar convention. So that convention basically on the wetland. So convention on wetland, it is happened in 1971 in Ramsar city of Iran, and that was created based on the World Wetland Convention. So that is the Wetland Convention is formed in the meeting was formed in 1971, and then it's coming into force. The Ramsar site is coming into force in 1975. So it provided for the national action and as well as the international cooperation regarding the conservation of wetland and sustainable uses of the resources. As I talked earlier, the importance of the wetland there, it's an huge importance in terms of social, ecological, and the economic. Okay, so Ramsar identified wetland internationally important. It's basically rich in biological diversity and providing the waterfowl habitat. Okay, that is basically indicator of which region you can call as a Ramsar site. Like in Oman, the first Ramsar site is the Kuram Nature Reserve wetland in Muscat, and Al Ansab wetland, that is a man-made wetland. It is also so in Oman, two Ramsar site. One is the Kuram Nature Reserve wetland, and second one is the Al Ansab wetland, that is a artificial wetland. Now the threat to the wetland ecosystems, as we talk about the different biological diversity, now it is also very important. We have talked about the importance of the wetland ecosystem, but nowadays it has a huge threat. It can be natural or it can be anthropogenic. Mainly the anthropogenic threats are much more dominating. So these are the basically drainage or filling. So all wetland basically act as a absorber or act as a kidney of the ecosystem. So whatever that it's also people are using as a dumping ground. So drainage and all the fillings are coming in the wetland ecosystem. Then grazing. So the in the wetland ecosystem, as it's very rich in the aquatic plants, so that are the very good food for the domestic animals. So that is the wetland ecosystem act as a very good grazing land. Okay, then the building of dams. Okay, in the wetland ecosystem, the dam is building, so that is one type of construction that happening in that is also depicting the natural ecosystem of the wetland. Okay, then the siltation, due to the siltation, so the wetland height and wetland are going to be diminished or vanish from that particular region due to the siltation. Okay, Then the water pollution. Water pollution is a major threat to the wetland ecosystem, because it's also the dumping ground. So everywhere the effluents from the industry, or maybe effluent from the domestic, it's coming and reach to the wetland. So the pollution level is increasing day by day, and it's a big threat. Then the over exploitation of wetland resources. As we already talked about, the wetland is a very rich in biological diversity in terms of the flora and fauna. So there is a very fish diversity is very high, so it can be also over exploited in terms of the flora and fauna. So that is also a big threat. Then the invasive species, different foreign species or invasive species and are introduced in the wetland ecosystem, that is damaging the natural system and natural species composition. So invasive species also a threat to the wetland ecosystem. Then the climate change, that increasing the carbon dioxide and increasing the due to the global warming and the climate change, that is also biggest threat to the wetland ecosystem. Now the infrastructure and development, that's a big problem. So basically the wetland is very close to the human habitat and close to the very common region. So there is a building or the construction are going on in beside the wetland. So wetland are vanishing and the development is happening. So it's a kind of unsustainable development. And the mining is also a biggest threat for the wetland ecosystem. So these are the threat of the wetland ecosystem. And now comes out talk about the little bit conservation. We have find out the threats. Now how we can make it conserve, or how we can make it protected. So for this, the biggest convention, that is the Ramsar Convention. It's a major the objective of the Ramsar Convention was the conservation of the wetland ecosystem. So it's an basically intergovernmental treaty. So it can be national and the international collaboration to protect this wetland ecosystem, and it provided the framework for the conservation and wise use of the wetland and their resources. And restoration, so that is also, if the wetland is damaging, so restoration is also a biggest means aims to protect it. So restore the damaging the ecosystem, damaging the wetland, and that can be back into its natural or the normal system. So primarily necessary, and it's protect the existing wetland. And the planning, managing and monitoring, so that is the main thing. So government should protect it in terms of planning. A good planning can be protect this vulnerable ecosystem. And good management and good monitoring, the law or regulation, so there this can be prevent the damage of the wetland ecosystem. And the building awareness, so people are not more aware about the importance of the wetland, as it is a rich in biological diversity. It is also kidney of the nature. So we should protect the wetland ecosystem as soon as possible. So that's why we produce a big day, that is the World Wetland Day, that's celebrate on the 2nd February each year. So that is taking as a building awareness on that in terms of the World Wetland Day. Then the research, scientific research can be build, make a good thing that can be built up the it's required to protect it. Then the community conservation, so that is a new area that protecting the ecosystem on their local people, by the local people. So community can protect it. Okay, so the community conservation is very important nowadays to protect any kind of ecosystem. So that's all about the wetland ecosystem. I think you understand, and if you have any query, just comment me. Thank you.